So the Hong Kong SAR government will vigorously implement this law, and I forewarn those radicals not to attempt to violate this law or crossing the red line, because the consequences of breaching this law are very serious.
For years now, Avery Ng has joined fellow members of his party on 1st of July to mark Hong Kong's handover to Chinese rule. But everything changed last week.
It isn't uncommon for such a small, peaceful protest to have 100+ police to search a dozen of us. But I guess this will be the new norm. You may never see the picture of million Hong Kongers on the street again. Not because we are content, or not because we are now happy with the government. It's because now we are too afraid to come out.
End single party rule! End single party rule!
This was the first protest since the new security law was put in place, which could see offenders go to prison for life for subversion. Several parties have now decided to disband. Some leading activists have fled. But Avery Ng and his party are not about to follow suit.
Because if for a political party to bow down now, what's it to say to the rest of Hong Kong? Psychologically, most of us are prepared to go to prison for a long time. We are not going to change what we have been doing for years, but depends on the level of suppression that we are going to face in the future. There will be certain modification and transformation of activism in Hong Kong, there's no doubt.
A strong sense of fear also looms over supporters. Self-censorship has been the most common reaction. Just as many pro-democracy restaurants have quickly taken down decorations with critical messages, leaving empty memos as a way of silent protest. Beijing insists the law will affect only a minority of lawbreakers. Critics say political activism is under threat, and that's just the first step. Mainland works for an NGO based in Hong Kong. For decades, it has been advocating for labor rights across Asia. Hong Kong has been a popular hub for thousands of local and international NGOs, but a new law means many are now reconsidering their options.
There's a lot of ambiguity. We don't know what do you mean by somehow maybe collude with foreign forces, because we have staff from overseas. Under this law, we are quite unsure how it will impact even the safety of individual staff, or what is the threats for us to if we continue to receive foreign funding. We have to somehow prepare the worst scenario. Then we may also consider to move to other countries.
Beijing has played down the law's impact, saying it immediately plans to strengthen the management of NGOs and other organizations in Hong Kong. Even though it's still unclear how the security law will be implemented, activists and advocates here will have to beware. They face a rocky road ahead.
And our correspondent, Phoebe Kong, who filed that report, joins us now from Hong Kong. Phoebe, in your report, we heard a Social Democrat say many activists are now afraid because of the new security law. What parts of that law do they fear most?
What's particularly concerning is that as we have this morning, there's a warning from the government, Hong Kong's top leader, Carrie, stating that they will enforce the law strictly and vigorously. And in terms of law enforcement, we also observe a drastic change. Just last night, the Hong Kong authority laid out a more detailed implementation to expand police power. So from now on, the Hong Kong police can search premises and intercept communications among people, or even free anyone's access without court warrants. So this is pretty much different from the practice in Hong Kong over the past few decades, which we have check and balances from the court. And all these measures to expand the police power cannot be challenged by at courts. So the citizens simply don't have any legal way to overthrow the decisions made by the government. So this is particularly concerning and fearful to activists, as they fear that they will be the main targets of the government, and they have no other way to stop the authority from intruding the personal data or safety.
In terms of everyday life there in Hong Kong, have you noticed any significant changes yourself since Beijing imposed the new security law?
Well, the law has been implemented for just a week. Then we observe there is a citywide chilling effect and self-censorship among ordinary citizens, that people are now censoring their own speech online, taking down comments or posts which they thought that may be sensitive in government's eyes. And we also see like public libraries now starting to remove books written by activists like Joshua Wong. And apart from that, and in terms of law enforcement, according to the rules implemented just today, starting from today, so the police are now they're empowered to remove or restrict or like ask network providers to remove any online messages which are deemed as endangering the national security. So we have saw like tech giants has already gave some responses. Facebook, Google, Twitter, and Telegram has already said they will suspend the request from the Hong Kong authorities to provide personal data, but in the future we're not sure whether they can really stick to their own rules, as this law is pretty strict, and anyone who fails to comply with the request from the authority may face jail sentences.
Phoebe, thank you very much. That was our correspondent Phoebe Kong in Hong Kong. Well, for more, let's go straight over to Joshua Wong. He's a prominent voice in Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement and joins us from there. Mr. Wong, Carrie Lam is warning people she describes as radicals of serious consequences if they break the new law. Does that scare you?
Chilling effect is generated by Beijing, and it's not only targeting activists. Even ordinary citizens or foreigners or expats left in Hong Kong might also be the prime target for Beijing to silence their voice. And we are strongly aware it's not only about political rights, it's also about the free flow of information and the free flow of capital being threatened by Beijing since the law is implemented in Hong Kong.
Okay, but what about you? Because you're a prominent face of the pro-democracy movement, and many people are watching and wondering how this affects you. Have you received any threats since this law was imposed?
With the risk of life sentencing, with the uncertainty to be extradited to China, with the risk all we face of being sent to the black jail in mainland China, national security law is the choice for Beijing to erode one country, two system to be one country, one system. But just like more than 100,000 Hong Kongers took to the street on July 1st, even police banned the rally, we still continue our fight in local, in Hong Kong. At the same time, we also have our friends and seek for global support.
Okay, but I was wondering about threats to you. Have you received any threats?
I received threats from pro-Beijing camp since last summer during the anti-extradition bill movement. But the threats can't defeat us, make us even stronger determination.
Your fellow activist, Nathan Law, he fled Hong Kong last week. Do you intend to stay?
I will continue to fight until the last minute. And it's also important to seek for local and global support at the same time. I will continue the campaign in the local level, and Nathan Law will be responsible for continue the global solidarity campaign, and we wish to let the voice of Hong Kongers being heard in the world.
Does that mean you're planning to stay in Hong Kong then? Because I believe you're facing charges there, is that correct?
With the political prosecution, I just faced the court trial 24 hours ago, and I still need to go to court on 5th of August. And that's also imply how Beijing continue to conduct mass arrests and political prosecution. In such city with only 7 million population, almost 10,000 people were arrested since last summer, and 1,600 of us were prosecuted, including me. But in such uphill battle, we still never give up. And on the upcoming primary election on this weekend, we hope to send a clear signal to Beijing: kowtow to the communist regime is not an option for us.
Do you think Carrie Lam has a point in saying that new security measures are needed in Hong Kong to avoid the massive and sometimes violent disruptions we've seen in the past?
Political crisis must solve by political system reform, escalating the situation and even allowing police to conduct house search without search warrant and to override on common law system by the mainland rule by hardline tactics, that's not the way out. No matter what happened, we will still continue to fight for freedom. And also we wish the world to know that how the race of Hong Kong people and expats live in Hong Kong might be extradited to China, and we might not be serving jail sentence in Hong Kong anymore, and we might need to serve the jail sentence in Beijing. That's the threat generated by Beijing. Life sentencing is not the things that we have imagined by activists in the previous day, but that's now the threat generated by the communist authorities.
Okay, the pro-democracy group you used to lead, Demosisto, that's been disbanded right as the new security law was being imposed. Has Beijing won?
I don't want to put my colleague and teammate life in risk. Even I need to face the risk of life sentencing. It doesn't mean that some of more low-profile activists need to face the same destiny. But even we are not continue to run as the name of Demosisto, the activist group that we belong to, we still continue our fight in the local level and global level. And we wish to have more global allies to stand with Hong Kong in such critical moment, because time is clicking in Hong Kong already.
Mr. Wong, thank you very much for talking with us. That was Joshua Wong, an activist in Hong Kong.
Thank you.
Well, in the wake of that new security law being imposed, global tech giants have been reviewing their strategies in the territory. The short-form video app TikTok has announced it will exit the Hong Kong market. The move comes after Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Twitter stopped taking requests for user data from Hong Kong. TikTok is a Chinese company and has been trying to grow its global audience. Well, for more on this, we're joined by Clifford Coonan, our China analyst from DW Business. Good to see you, Clifford. So tell us, why is TikTok, a Chinese company, withdrawing its app from stores from Hong Kong?
Well, I think TikTok, because it's a Chinese company which is trying to expand globally, has to show that it's independent of the China market, and so it has to be more international than even the other international tech giants. So it's made this decision to go even further than Facebook and Twitter by actually removing its app from the stores. It has a Chinese wing called Douban, which isn't affected by this. But it shows that they are very keen to have this international image. They've had a lot of problems with their image in the last year or so. We had a case last year, you might recall, where a Uyghur girl did a makeup ad, a makeup TikTok, and during the course of it spoke about the camps, the labor camps in Xinjiang. So they've been trying to improve their image. They've hired a guy from Disney and who's now looking after that side of the business as well. So it's really part of that approach.
Is this the first real sign of the impact that the security law is having on business in Hong Kong?
I think so. I mean, we heard in the report there how people are sort of waiting to see how it'll be implemented. And I think this is an example of the kind of effect that we're going to see, because we've had these big tech firms and TikTok making these decisions now to withdraw or to review how they're approaching Hong Kong. And I think it's going to spill over into other areas now. And it could be that this is going to be the new normal in Hong Kong after the security law.
You mentioned Facebook and Google, big tech firms, many of them American. It's quite unusual to see U.S. tech firms of that size challenging Beijing, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we're still waiting for Apple. Apple hasn't made its statement yet, but the fact that Twitter and Facebook are already reviewing is a very big signal. TikTok. So I think you're going to see more pushback now against China. If we think about Huawei, we've had the Huawei story and telecoms for so long. In a way, this whole area about what sort of control the Chinese government can have of international companies when there's a different playing fields, as it were, between these companies and between these government controls. That's coming more and more to the fore. And I think it's going to be played out in Hong Kong.
China analyst Clifford Coonan, thank you very much.